from you guys.
All right, we are going
Tessa,
live.
is that your name?
No, that's not Tessa.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you look like someone I know. I'm sorry.
Listen, if that was Tessa
Yeah.
walking in front of us, that'd have been great.
Oh, God, that would have been cool.
That'd have been great because Tessa showed at the Doubting Thomas. And
yes, I saw that one.
Yeah, we also had her, Tuesday at 7. What a great artist. But, guys, it is Tuesday at 7. We are coming live from Tremont, Ohio. Those folks who are in Northeast Ohio, you understand that what Tremont is, where it's at.
Hey, buddy.
And what it's about. But we are here to talk about art. We're here to, learn from experiences.
Okay.
But
hey, don't go on about that elder bullshit, please.
well, let me tell you why I used the word elder, because you've been around the sun a few times.
Sure, at least. I think that being around somewhere gives you a formality, but also creates a little contempt. Remember what they say about, your friends that like fish. After the third day, you want them to leave and that kind of stuff. So the formality, I think, is what the problem here is. And so, how do you stay relevant at 80? The fuck? How do I know?
Well, I think it's sharing that knowledge right out to folks and maybe fulfilling your.
I think what happens to you is that you decide what you're doing. You better love it, otherwise it's an early grave. If you don't, you end up doing what you want. And that's the real joy in life, isn't it? Doing not necessarily what you want, because there's a discipline involved, obviously.
Yeah.
But doing the things that you love the most with a little hard work and, not feeling the guilt of having to pay for your life with it. Don't you think?
I believe that, yeah.
And you know what I mean by paying for your life with it. Because as an artist, you don't get to do that. You have a job or you have a career, and then you get to do your art.
Yeah.
So if that's the debris that washes up on shore, well, I'm happy with that too.
Well, we are in here in Tremont, Ohio. We're walking down the sidewalk. We're heading towards Doubting Thomas because you have kind of an installation.
Yeah, actually, again, I'm trying to break the norms of this whole gallery thing. I think galleries are a dying aspect of our creative life. I think that they're, basically anachronistic at this point. In that, and what do you go to galleries for? Cheese and wine and hang out with other artists. Well, here we are, no cheese and wine, but we're hanging out with the other artists.
Yeah.
So I think the technology had something to do with that. But my point being is that with the whole thing changes, so how does an artist stay relevant? How do you get to go out and see the art? A lot of it is obviously on the internet, and we're on the internet, are we not?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And what's crazy is you have to put out a lot of wine and a lot of cheese, and to gather like a few thousand people together, and that's what's going to gather today.
And listen, after you've done a career of it, you've done so many of them, you get sick of seeing them. You think to yourself, really, what am I getting out of this? Because I can tell you, I sold more through agents and just run-of-the-mill stuff than at galleries. I think galleries, mainly for me, has been a proposal for meeting other artists, meeting other people, having people come and say what they think about your art. I think that's a good, solid thing. So that's what I'm trying to do is I asked the lady who runs the Doubting Thomas, let me have it for a month. And so I did a no-show show. I didn't advertise. I invited a small group of people that I considered. And obviously you were involved in this because I want this to go out. And then I didn't bring cheese, and I didn't bring wine, and I didn't send out an invitation. As soon as we get there, you'll see there are no labels, and I didn't even put up art. I have projections, these high-end projectors that are putting up real nice 3D digital and other stuff that I've done. And if you know my work, you'll see it's basically digital anyways. Although I have spent a career painting, and you've seen the paintings.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Great paintings. Let me ask you, your friends, your peers, what do they address you by? What do they call you?
Oh, God.
I mean, because elder is I want to be respectful.
Slain.
Slain. Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because at this point, it's not, it's a pseudonym, obviously. It's a AKA. And it's what it really is the result of almost 50 years of being a public or non-public figure. I think my private life is mine now for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Well, for those of you who recognize Tremont,
okay, so my bearings.
We are here at Fairfield, and we're gonna walk and talk, and we're gonna find our way over to the Doubting.
Okay, the Doubting
Thomas.
We're on the wrong street. That's why we're on 11th. Right. We need to get the professor. Oh God.
So going. So if you guys are familiar with, is there a point here?
Yeah, you are here. Okay.
And you know what was cool is I don't know that most people know that Lincoln Park. There's a Lincoln Park in Cleveland.
Yeah.
It's not just a great band.
No. Yes. Start weather. So we're going to where? Larry, no, Jefferson. Okay, Tremont. So if we're here, we need to go down. Professor. Okay, so where's Professor? Is that Professor West 11th? Where's Professor? They lie! There's Fairfield.
We heading in this direction?
Yes, I think we are, yeah.
We're gonna walk and talk here. So it's unexpected. The artist of, and was it 80-ish years? I don't want to measure people by
okay,
age,
so no, I am one of those kids who started out as a child prodigy. I started painting when I was a real young kid. I started drawing when I was 4 or 5. Started painting when I was about 3. And what I mean by painting is I understood what I was trying to do, rather than like the chimpanzees. Because the previous year I had learned to read, and I was reading picture books, and one of the first picture books I ever got in my life was a book of Dali prints and paintings. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew that I was looking at something really freaking cool, and something that my mom, dad, and anybody else around me did not know, except for the person who left the book. That's a whole nother story. But that started me.
So Dali was one of your early picture books?
Oh, God, I had nightmares and dreams about Dali. One time I had every Dali book that you could possibly imagine. I collected. I went here. I got to meet him, by the way.
Oh, really?
He came here. They had a museum here in Beechwood that one of his biggest collectors was Reynolds Morse. So Reynolds built a place to put the paintings here in Cleveland. And then he invited Dali to come down to verify that they were really Dali paintings. When I heard that, I paid someone who worked the crew, I paid them $200 for them to get sick that day so that I could come in and help hang the Matador paintings, the hallucinogenic Matador. That as soon as you walked into the building, you could see it. It was right there in front of you. And then I got the chance to talk to him for a few minutes because I know Spanish.
Okay.
And he talks English, but a really bad version of it.
So you had to practice your Spanish?
No, actually, I didn't say a word. I was terrified of the guy. After I saw the painting, I said, "This is a real guy." And I looked in his eyes. He goes, "He's also fucking blind crazy. He's nuts." He looked at me, his googly eyes, like. And then he said to me, "This took me 16 hours to paint." And I said, "What?" In Spanish, "Como?" He said, "The hands. Look at the hands." He said, "You look at the painting. It's him painting himself as he's painting the painting."
Yeah.
Oh, God. And I said, 16 hours just on the hands. He goes, see, come on, moza. A little more, a little less. Oh, God.
So, Dali,
he came here and he would install the paintings and he'd hang out for the interviews. And then he'd go to the Morse house, wherever that was. But in the meantime, he would supervise putting up the paintings because he was all about the paintings.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we're at. We need to get the professor. I believe That's it right there. We got it.
All right. What's interesting to me is,
and I got to tell you, I'm dyslexic.
well, one would expect that that the digital realm would not be a direction that somebody of 80 some years would explore, but like you're going in some really nouveau ways, right?
I guess in a way you can say that, and I'm not confined with just traditional pigment and traditional, post-industrial print methods. And what I mean is anything from a 14th century intaglio to, right now offset print. All that's available, and all that grew up, and all that is like part of the power of what artists can do, but not many artists can harness that because it was put in place as the advertising media that uses artists, used to, now you do it with AI.
Yeah.
And boy, that changed things significantly in what artists do. So it made them nonplus. All of a sudden you didn't need to know how to draw, just needed to know how to use a computer.
What do you think about AI?
I think it's one of the most interesting things that ever happened to humanity. I think that AI has been something that
Definitely.
we've been trying to get after for about since the times of the oracles, because as it turns out, some of the oracles were AIs. And I'll explain that in a second. I also think that because of people like Da Vinci, the whole idea of AI becomes relevant a whole new way. Okay. Where are we? Okay, I know I'm close. Literary professor, we go down.
We are here in Tremont. We went and grabbed an iced coffee, right? Which we're finishing
Actually,
up.
we're stalling for time because we're doing a light show and we're waiting for the sun to kind of let go for a little bit so we could turn the lights out and really look cool. Your camera does infrared, right?
It I don't know. It
We'll
captures
find out.
low light. Yep.
Yeah, most cameras adjust for white balance when you go into a dark room, anyways.
In terms of laser,
Yeah.
right? So you find AI fascinating. You've embraced arts of all different mediums. Painting, one of your first books was Dali, and but we're going to be stepping into a gallery, and there's going to be lasers, but you're not new to lasers.
I actually worked in the fields of illuminists and photon projectionists, as they called themselves. And these were a small group of people that did things like laserium, and who they would do Christmas shows, or they would hang out with bands and then be design their equipment for them. It was just something that happened in the 80s when there was a surplus of medical lasers that made themselves available to creative people like the guy that I worked for.
Yeah.
He decided he was an engineer for a local oil company, and he had 9 patents, so he sold off the patents and he bought a laser company, and he hired me. And I knew something about lasers. I knew how they worked basically, but I got my education from him because I did a lot of shows with him. And this was using lasers to light up a venue or a band. And you've been to, your standard shock show where the lasers suddenly go up and you go, oh God. So that was us. We were the guys who did that.
Well, what are some of the bands that, and I know this answer, but what are some of the bands that you found yourself working on some of those lasers?
Okay, so we did because we did all the Deadhead shows when they came to Ohio, and because of that we started doing Anastasia's what's her name, the Fish and those guys.
Yeah,
we did their shows at Wolf. We did the Christmas shows here in Cleveland downtown.
Yeah.
We did any show that came through who needed backup lighting, and usually they'd come and ask for Harry because we also did the WWF when they first came here to the Coliseum. And then later they had him by. They would typically they'd see the show and they'd say, how can we do this now? So they would design a show for them, basically. So I got about 20 years of doing that. We went all over the country. I did shows with Motorhead. I got to talk to Lemmy. I did shows for Pink Floyd. And the thing about the shows is that, as I was telling Roger earlier in our conversation, I got a decent amount of respect for the people who put these on, because these people don't sleep for 3 days and they still do an incredible job. Along with the putting on the creative forces that happen in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's where creative people end up. All too often it's a battleground, but most of the time it's a very, very, very beautiful creative place. And you've been to a concert, you know what the highs and lows of a concert are like.
Yeah.
But that's where art is. That's where art. We're layering it now because of. Okay, we're layering it. We're layering now because at one time one group was responsible for the images. Now there were artists. Whenever you said, "Oh, I got images of album cover," I got the way the group looks and all that. But that doesn't happen anymore. Now you got influencers.
Yeah.
People who don't pick up pencils, who don't have an art career, don't know a goddamn thing about art, but they say, "Yo, you should dress like this," and people do.
And people do. And people do.
So, all right, we're on the right track. There's Paul's place.
I know that folks who are from Cleveland know where we're at, right?
Oh God.
We're here at Professor and College. We got the tree
we
house.
Got one more to. Yeah, we got one more to go.
And I am interested because your digital work is quite striking.
We're going to see some of it because a lot of the projection systems that I have are projecting 4K. Since they're 4K systems, so I can actually show them in the right, as opposed to seeing them on a computer screen or on a phone. But yeah, a lot of them are very hairy. Okay. There it is. We found it. Okay.
I
think what's happened, I'm battling in my head because there are details that are involved here in that. For example, the reason I got into digital is because I decided at some point that I understood. I was reading a lot of science fiction, and I was deciding that what they were talking about was something that I completely understood: computers. So I wrote a mathematical computer that I didn't know at the time somebody had already done, and actually 2 or 3 other people. And so I presented this particular set of ideas to my woodshop teacher in high school. I was all of 14, and he said to me, "The hell is this? What is this?" And I go, "Well, it's a math for a computer." "What's a computer?" He goes, "You're going to talk to the nurse." I go, "Okay." She got the school psychologist. The psychologist started looking at it. She looking at me, looking at it. And she goes, "Hold on, son." She went over and got 2 stack of papers. This second. Said, "I'm going to give you a test. I want you to take a test. It's going to take you about an hour." 15 minutes later, "I'm done." She goes, "Are you sure?" Yeah. And then she goes, "Oh, you did it all the way to the end?" I go, "Yeah." "In less than 7 minutes?" I go, "Yeah." And then she goes, Oh, you sit right there. Don't move. Don't move. I go, "Oh God, I fucked up. Oh God, I really fucked up. I'm in for it now. They're going to think I'm lying." I went, "Oh God." Yeah. Okay, so they called in another nurse.
Yeah.
Took the standard IQ, right? She goes, "Kid, you shouldn't be here." "What do you mean? You should not be here. No, you should be in college. I can see why you're acting out." I go, "I'm not acting out. I just said I got an idea for a computer." We're going to the corner thing, right?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I recognize some of the artwork on these garbage cans.
Oh yeah.
I think it's is that David's work?
Yep.
David and I first met. It's probably 20 some years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
I think I might have some of that painted work in our house someplace. I do believe. But the question that I know is probably on the minds of the folks watching, and for folks who are joining here live or the recorded session, you could throw out questions. But Dolly, you had mentioned Da Vinci. Are those artists that you followed, watched, inspired by?
Yes, I have a theory. I have this theory. It's called the knucklehead theory. And the knucklehead theory is that you're a knucklehead until you have something happen to you that causes you to see something that works properly. Then you're not a knucklehead. So Da Vinci he got to the point in his life where he understood that he was no longer a knucklehead. And because of that, it separated him from the rest of the world. But he also understood that whatever he did in his own time, that it was going to follow through way down the line past his own life. I'm pretty sure he understood DNA, but he had no way of expressing it.
Right.
But he did express the engineering concepts and ideas and advances in his time, filtered through his personality. Now, those things happened in our society and created a lot of things that we have today, like the camera, like the wheel, all kinds of things that came from his hand, and I call that the Da Vinci effect. Robots as well, because he built robots.
Yeah.
He built robots. He built a lion, and he made the lion follow him, and the lion would walk up to the king of France or Germany, whoever the king was, open its mouth, and his tongue would come out. The lion would have a postcard or card, an invitation to a show for Da Vinci. And this was all done with hand cranks. And this was in 1429, when the best saw you can get would take 10 years to make because someone had to make you the saw. So he made his own tools, which were never found, by the way.
Oh.
And he did this thing they call the triumphant, where he made a rotating stage about the size of Carnegie Hall. And then he had it turn with animals and they're all made out of wood and string and fiber. And then he had it taken apart because they thought he was possessed by demons at that point. Like, how did anybody do that? You had all these wooden. Are those real people? No, they're made out of wood. But then you take them apart. By the way, there's a website now where there's a guy in Michigan who's actually putting them back together again, according to his plans. So I think that very gene, is prevalent in the human race, and it springs up. And if enough people proliferate this gene, and we got all kinds of Da Vincis.
Yeah. Well, we are here at the Downey Thomas. We took the long
way home
around because I absolutely love the conversation.
So if anybody knows about the history of the Doubting Thomas has been here for 40 years. It's one of the longest running galleries in this part of the world and in the Cleveland area. This is what I call the altar room. And in here is where I'm doing my presentation. That is, I'm experimenting with lights. And then out here is where the projection systems are. And a little bit later on, we'll actually put them on, you'll be able to see. But these projectors they're the new advance in projector systems, and they use laser light rather than regular light. And they're really lightweight, and they do everything, and they have little computers in them now. So they can talk to each other, and they can run music. And you don't even need to have a connection to a projector anymore. You can just tell them what you want with little memory sticks.
Oh.
And the memory sticks have the programs on them. And then you can program them and play them using, the magic wand. So that, for example, hopefully I want to get this one going. So
you have to get a little bit of prep work here?
No, everything's on a memory stick. All I do is just fire them up and let them go. And that's this way.
As you're firing that up,
sure.
For those of you who joined us a few weeks ago, we were with Victor and Victor. You'll have to help me with
Yeah.
pronunciation. I want to make sure Melorania, right? Melorania. I want to make sure that I got that right because I like to
a proper Basque name.
Yeah, but Victor's.
Yeah.
I mean, he had that like that rat faint 3-dimensional work.
Yeah.
And there were thousands of people that watched that work. But if you shared that video last week, your name is in this hat.
Yes.
And if you would, let's draw a name out of there, Slane. And if your name is drawn out of here, you get a piece of framed work from Victor. And
Lisa Delaney,
Yeah. Well,
hey,
thank
Lisa.
you.
Yay, Lisa.
Walsh Delaney. And we will...
Lisa.
My pocket because I'll forget about it. Thank you for sharing it. We'll get this artwork to you. But what we want to do is encourage folks to share this interview as well. Slane was gifting some work out into the universe. And there's work that I have at home that will be moved over to whoever's name is chosen at our next gathering. So please share away.
No. Everything you see and hear is all done by my hands. The music was composed and performed by me. The editing, all of it, including, oh God, I don't have any. Okay.
Thank you, Diane.
So I believe that the galleries of the future will be similar to this. These small spaces where people can come during the day or when they need to, and it'll be all video and 3D projections around them with enough tactile and enough audio and olfactory. I'm surprised someone hasn't already done that. You know, little cubicles where 4 or 5 people could sit and be surrounded by art. At the same time, they may be having, conversation, or they might just be there meditating, or they just might be there because they like the art.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the importance of
it has a lot to do that we're conditioned with images now that are electronic as opposed to pigmented. Or another way of saying that, we accept video now as much as we accept the reality. And the generations, as they go by, learn more and more how to.
So this projector has speakers. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's in a network. It also can do Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So what I do is I just put them in a network, and they can then share so that they don't all play music at once. One will play while the other ones are down, and then they'll decide who plays and what images to show. I can always override the images because I've got the little wand.
I know that we've got a bunch of folks joining us. Thank you for joining us live. Feel free to ask your questions. We're with Slane Nemo. If you follow him out on the socials, certainly here on Facebook. And we're at the Doubting Thomas Gallery down here in Tremont. We took a nice walk here. Now we're experiencing some of the digital artwork, the interactive,
These are all fractals. They were generated on a computer.
Explain fractals.
Okay, fractals are a mathematical charting system that uses high-end math like Fourier transforms and basic formulas that were designed by a guy named Benoit Mendelbrot, who came up with the idea of fractals, and it means fractional dimension. Or what if you had a 2.5 dimension object? Well, it turns out we actually do. but they also describe number systems that would describe real things, the way lichen grows, the way bark appears on a tree, or the cragginess of the English coast. These formulas describe shapes and instances in 3D that allow you to define worlds, in fact, entire worlds, based on the idea that everything's curved, that everything's rugged, everything's cracked and broken, and when you arrange it in a certain way, it actually looks quite beautiful. But they're mathematical formulas, basically. I can't at this point show you how that works, but let's just say that there are editor systems where you enter in a bunch of numbers with an idea of what you're looking for, and then it starts to draw it, and then it's in a 3D environment, so you can actually turn it around, look at it from the top to bottom, or add more things to it, or actually make it in a lensing system like a camera. So you're using a standard camera then to take the picture of whatever it is that you're generating in the 3D model.
A image that you're presenting here, like each image takes like how long?
Okay, like, so it used to take me days.
Okay.
In the days back when there were simple little computers. But these days you can buy some really tough, really heavy-duty computer systems that people use to play games with.
Yeah.
That have multiple cores. They're more like supercomputers now than they ever were. I have several of those joined together so that what used to take me days now takes me minutes, so that I can actually generate stuff in, say, 5-10 minutes after I decide. But I've been working on this for 40 years, so I kind of understand, how it works, basically, how the numbers go together to get the images that I want. And right now, fractals are the language of physicists in that they help describe visually what physicists would try to tell you the way the universe actually looks like. The curviness of it, the self-repeating nature, the organic textures, the way that it looks like it could actually be, but it's really a charting, a plotting, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you create physical copies of
yes, I do.
Images?
Yes, I use them when I can use that when I'm trying to do like a painting, and so I use fractals of blades of grass to fill it in to make it realistic. And by the way, I don't do paintings anyway with oil anymore. I use high-end physics systems. These are systems that you can describe what you want, and it'll actually make them for you. It's the same systems that they use to do all the Marvel features, Superman, when Superman flies now. When you see those big giant dragons and things flying around you, those are all described in the editors and done by artists, although these days more and more they're being done with, AI and people who are not writers anymore, just geeks who know how it works.
Yeah.
But it's changing. It's changing, and that's why this is changing for me. This was once the gallery, and the gallery was where people came, and you notice that not only is it empty of people, but they're on the wrong side. The people are on the side of your technology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that? Yeah. So the boundary here is now we have an ethereal space. We can take whatever we're doing here and just throw it through that thing, and 10,000 people see it all at once.
Yeah. The no-show show.
Thank you.
The no-show show.
Yeah.
But the no-show show will be seen by
anybody who wants to now, and it'll be done in posterity because you don't lose anything on the internet. It'll be around forever. And so that makes for more of a concrete aesthetic. But because we live in a society where some of that thing still has to catch up to us, people have to appreciate that, and they are. If you get in the audience now, then say 10 years from now, people will sit around right after dinner and see the latest art.
Yeah.
Have an interview with the guy, and we know where he is. He's in Doubting Thomas. There's nobody else there. Well, that's. I think he intended that. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
What do you think your shop teacher, back when you said, well, this is a computer, and he said to the school psychologist, what do you think he would think about what you're doing right now? Your shop teacher.
What I learned over time, that my world was always going to be filled with people that I selected that it's not going to be random, or it's not going to be like somebody works in a public job where you meet, anonymous people every day.
Yeah.
And then I decided at that point that I rather liked that a lot. And so my interactions with the world have always been minimal, aka why I have slang Nemo instead of my real name, and why I prefer anonymity over other things in private. It's largely because I've come to the decision that as an artist, you can get to do what you want, but you're going to pay dearly for it. Yeah. And one of the ways is you're going to be spending a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, if you're going to do it seriously, it's hard work. So I have about 17 to 18 hours a day where I just work. And then I get to do this. And here I am with one person in a gallery space talking about no people, no show, no. And so having said that, I think this is the galleries of the future. I do.
Yeah.
I think the galleries of the future will be somebody will go into an open space, plop down a little projector, and walk away 10 minutes later doing holography in every direction.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that such animal. I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see instant art. I'd like to see vid where I bought these things because I'm going to do outdoor shows. Just put a battery pack on the back of one of these and hang it in a tree, and then project it for 3 or 4 days, and then come back in and pick it up and put it somewhere else. I'll be doing that late summer, early August. Yeah.
You're. I know you've met some memorable musicians over the time, and what does music and maybe some of those music pioneers, Bowie, and I think you mentioned, he had worked with the Floyd back in the 70s, and even some of some of our local favorites. I mean, Fish, the Dead, and you even talked about working with Trent Reznor, right?
Yes. What the common denominator in everything you just said?
Yeah.
Is they were artistic pursuits of the working class. These were artistic pursuits of people who kept jobs, who worked in the steel mills, Cleveland was a place to go when you wanted to see rock and roll. Why? Because it bred rock musicians from bands where the guy would be slinging car parts one night and the next night. And I'm talking about Joe Walsh, I'm talking about people who like Don Schwartz, and I'm talking about people who grew up in these things. And even today, I can name half a dozen people who came out of Cleveland under these conditions. Why? Well, the common denominator is they were artistic pursuits of working class people. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is they were hungry, they wanted to prove something, and they had something to prove. And I think that's what Cleveland breeds. This region of the world, for some reason, does that. Because it's no joke, we could sit down and come up with a list of 200 people, of personalities who made big time out there that came from here, just right down the street. And I'm talking about, okay, so we can go on forever about this particular thing.
Well, even Rush, right? Even Rush might not have hit big had Working Man.
They came to Cleveland and did the
Cleveland
Agora. I remember those shows.
Oh,
I did the lights for one of those shows, yeah. And yes, absolutely, yes. Because if you were an up-and-coming, and I'm talking about David Bowie, I'm talking about, our own poet laureate from South Beach, Southside Johnny, who was a mainstay. And he used to hang out at the pub when he was down the street here, when he wasn't doing shows at the Agora on 22nd. So if you came down to Trent, any Friday night in the 80s, you could go to the Pirates Cove and see Joe Walsh playing.
Oh, yeah.
Or you go down the street to the Carousel and you see, Chrissy Hines, you see, all right. So I go on but my point is that there were a lot of people that came from this part of the world who had an aesthetic sense and who developed things. That's turning off because this one's about to come on. But I'm not going to let it because we got to still do one or two things yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the stream of consciousness that I'm trying to evoke here is that I think I'm in the right place. And I like that this is a place where people come out of that struggle hard and spend their lives doing it. And I think I've gotten to the point where I realize now it is a life, and I've lived this life, and I'm quite happy with it. I don't feel guilty about any of it.
Yeah.
And I'm now having fun in that I finally decided I now know how to paint after all these years. And the funny thing is, I'm not painting as much because I'm doing a lot of electronic, a lot of cerebral work, a lot of physics stuff. Because I'm also doing, we're not in my studio. My studio, I have a lot of laser cutting stuff, the laser thing. But I'm working with light, and I'm doing holography, still form holography, projecting holography. So you can sit in a room and it'll just boom happen in front of you.
Yeah.
It's real expensive because the natures of those creatures are still on the higher end. They're actually hybrid lasers that are able to take 8 or 9 or 12 laser beams into one and compress it into one beam and then break it back down into. It's a laser beam. The same idea with these. Yeah. You can use it like normal light, but you can also use it like a hologram. So they're thinking about holographic TVs. Yeah. So you watch big cubes like that, and the thing happens inside the cube. Or then there's projections, which happens outside the cube. And then there's still air, where it just seems to come from everywhere. So.
One of the things that I posted, actually, my wife and I were...
Now, don't admit that. When you were a kid, you wanted to see that.
Oh, yeah.
You wanted to see the flying cars, right? And you wanted to know where the Jetsons happened.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we're happening.
Yeah. It's happening. And I remember George Jetson, right? Talking to, was it Stanley Sprocket, right on the wall, and they would have, George, well, where are you?
There you go. There you go.
And we're doing that today.
Yes. You're doing it now.
We're doing it now. It's crazy that, with a normal phone, right? And, $25 or $30 of, cheap lavaliers for microphones, you can push this stuff out into the world. And as you said, like this art form is, will be around forever.
It's becoming very transparent.
Yeah. But folks like you, right? What I mean by that, folks like you is like, so you've been around longer than I have. And you're the pioneer in this, right? Because you're the first generation that experienced many things.
Can I go on record as saying that I am probably the only artist on the planet who actually has a work of art in the museum that predates 1985 or 86 when Andy Warhol said he made a digital print, but he really didn't. All he did was sign a copy of a Xerox print. But I actually did make a Xerox print. We'll talk about that later. But it's in the museum. Anybody can go see it if they want to. It's labeled the first CGI on the planet. Now, why? Well, because I saw it coming, and it was there. And at the time, we had to go talk people into letting us use their equipment. And, but I realized at that time that it was going to be what takes over the world. And I wasn't the only one, because there were other prescient artists like Dolly. And I remember that's one thing he said to me in our conversations. He hated the fact that there were people who could just print out. We were looking at a stack of his prints, right? And I don't know if you know anything about Dolly. That's how he made his fortune. He would self-print. And a lot of them were just reproductions of reproductions. He didn't care. Yeah. It was Gala who was doing most of it. And they didn't have a Netflix, expose documentary on it. But at that time, I got to see when he had a big stack, and he was grousing about it. These fucking guys, they make color errors, and I hate them. They make me look bad, but I need the money. Oh God! Anybody hear that? You mean at your stage of the game, you're still, oh yeah.
Well, he was an extravagant spender, right? I mean,
yes, he was.
And he threw some parties too.
He was nuts. Let's say he was psychoaffective. He was. Yeah. Without medication, but his thing was working. He did work. Yeah. And money. So, but why am I saying that? Well, because we're stuck in those ruts. And so what I've tried to do in my life is to take the advantages that I've seen over these technologies that are coming available to me and use them and teach people how to use them, make them prevalent, make them transparent, make them available, because it's a technology when it first comes out, but then later it's a phone. And people forget that phones used to only carry voices. These fucking things carry messages from space. They're computers. Yeah. And getting more sophisticated by the minute. Now with AI, AI knows your breathing pattern at night. And I have one. that says, well, you're near, it'll wake me up. Ding, 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 ding. What the fuck do you want? Your breathing pattern changed. No, shut up. Your breathing pattern changed. I go, I'm sleeping. So I turned the thing off. It turns itself back on.
What I want to encourage people to do, first of all, just to embrace what you're doing, right? You know, not only have you blazed a trail that we follow through, but you're blazing a trail into kind of this new digital realm as well. And I think that's really, really relevant for any artist.
I think that artists need to be more scientists by demand, because if they're going to try and compete with the world, the only people that are able to compete with them right now are engineers and scientists. Why not be an artist engineer? And that's why I'm talking about Da Vinci, because that's exactly what he was. Yeah. He was a polymath, and I'm going to claim that about myself. I am also a polymath. A polymath is capable of doing a number of things very, very well, as opposed to one good thing and a couple of major, minor things. No, a polymath can do a bunch of things. He's a musician, he's an artist, he's a writer, he's an engineer, and there you go, there's Da Vinci. So I say that gene is in the human gene pool. Some of us were blessed with that. And it's more pervasive than you may think. But like any kind of skill, any kind of joyful talent that you may have, it's worthless unless you invest at least 10,000 hours to make it work for you. I mean, 10,000 hours, that's your life, you know, your career. That's what you do. So, you see this? I earned this the hard way. I had to work for it.
I know that there's a lot of people who are thinking, do we get a piece of maybe history and artwork? And the answer is yes. In the very bottom left-hand side of your screen, there's an arrow. And if you press that arrow, you can share it to your friends list. And when you share it to your friends list, you're doing us a favor as a community. You're getting the story out. But next week, when we meet next, we're going to put, if you share, your name's going to be put in a drawing, and there's some artwork that is up for grabs because Slane gifted a piece to me and to our community to be used for such manner.
Yeah, I brought some more. If you want, you can take a pic of some of these. These are the AI prints and the fractal prints and my artwork as well. It's all in here. So you could pick out 5 and put them in a bundle, and I'll be glad to, you know, that's along with these portraits of magic and my 3D animation stuff. Oh, and I gotta say, this is the project I'm working on. These are the obelisks that I've been working on. These obelisks, and this is AI. Now, the way AI works is it uses the same rendering engines that the animation people use, but it's connected to an AI agent as opposed to a person. So when you start to describe, it takes that description and breaks it down syntactically as to what it needs to do to be able to reproduce that. But since it could do those calculations, billions of them in a second, it usually takes about a minute, less than 30 seconds to actually come up with a finished image. And these are some of the images here.
Well, that is absolutely generous. We will bundle 5.
Yes. Yeah.
And use it as our giveaway for next week. What important things have we not experienced yet in our time together? To know a little bit about you and what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, I know that we'd be live here for days, perhaps, right?
Well, and the thing about life is, isn't it funny that we only get to really actually participate in a very small part of it, even though a big part of it's going on constantly, like a roaring, like a stream of water coming from heaven, but you only experience it in terms of the personal events that you're going through during the course of the day, because you're filtering everything through your ego. Now, you know, Wiseman has said to me, well, there's an opposite to that. There are parts where you can do the opposite. But the problem with that is you don't get to be who you are. You're something greater, and you got to either conform to that or don't. So I think what he was really saying was be happy where you're at when you're there, because it may change. And if it does, you have no control over it. So in ending, I would say I've got this thing I tell people. I say, I feel like a leaf in the wind driven by forces I barely understand and barely comprehend, I smile all the way through it. That's it. And that's my message of my good content message at the end of the day. If anybody wants to know, this is my altar to the laser deities. And we're you're not going to be able to see it, but this is going to go on for the next couple of days. Basically, it's adjusting to the sounds in the room, and I'm going to leave a recording playing. When I come back in a week, it will completely play itself out in colors, and not randomly, but according to the music. For example, I could tell it to change colors simply by talking to it. Change colors! And I can selectively pick 2 or 3 of these to do things, and say, okay, they're giving me some crazy antics here. And I have the laser hooked up to the computer and to so that the laser also changes.
So you don't need to see the Floyd in 1978 to experience great...
No. And what I've done basically is I've taken it and put it in your living room. And I think the technology is gotten to that point where you can actually have this in your living room and it doesn't really burn your eyes like it would when you went to the Floyd concert and there aren't 100,000 people there. And by the way, it does respond to music rather well. So, but also think that the visual displays have always been something that entrances humans because we started our visuals by watching lightning, and things in the real world, the embers in the fire, and then when they crackled down and became, or when we watched the meteorites or any of those things that were special events in our life, we always accumulated it. And now we have the equipment to produce those special events. Bring them back.
Close us out with a closing statement here, and I almost want to close out, but I almost just want to keep going. But close us out. Enlightenment. What should young artists look for in the pursuit of enlightenment?
That's a hard one. I'm just going to go the standard line with this one. The only thing that matters to me is the truth in being now. And that's the only thing that matters is if you're truthful and you're in the now. Because you notice whenever you're not in the now, you're thinking about tomorrow, you're thinking about yesterday, you're thinking about a year ago, you're thinking about the grudge you had, you're thinking about everything except what's happening to you at that very moment. And then when you do turn to see that and you become one with that, then suddenly nothing means anything anymore except that you're present. So that's part of what I think about. And I'm not always there. I live my life like you, thinking about, I got bills to pay and I got all the things. But I think the Buddha in his great wisdom knew that the thing that happens to you over time is that eventually it wears in. It eventually soaks in. Eventually you stop faking it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We appreciate you sharing your no-show show with us, some of your sage wisdom and your fractal imagery, your laser, and I know that our community is going to appreciate that.
All that and a cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, thank you, and we'll talk to you guys all next week.